So thanks so much for being here, Michele.
Thanks, Justin. I'm very delighted to be here and to speaking with you and with everyone who's participating in this course.
So what's the power of a graduate profile? Why is that so important? Why is that such a powerful place to start thinking about change initiatives in schools?
It really is a powerful place because we're able to focus on the young person, focus on what high school is going to mean for them in their lives. High school needs to have a purpose, but it also needs to be a kind of pathway that is a launching pad for what you're going to do as an adult and who you're going to be. A graduate profile also is critical today because our young people are facing a much more rapidly changing society than ever before, and they're going to have to learn to be learners for life. They're going to have to develop attributes as well as knowledge and skills. And that's our job today.
Is to think about that combination of things, if we're facing a world where we ask our high school graduates to leave with a more holistic set of capacities, we need to really think critically about what we want those capacities to be.
Yeah, so we think in XQ, of the XQ learner goals, include things like mastering the fundamental literacies that we all have always thought about. Critical reading, competent writing, numeric thinking, but also holders of foundational knowledge, not in meaningless pieces of content, but rather foundational knowledge that where students are curious about history, curious about science, and master enough of it that they can build off of it and be learners forever, as well as competencies like generative thinking and creative thinking, collaboration, being able to work together.
And the exercise of creating a graduate profile can be building upon those XQ learner goals and really asking the question, like, what does that look like for us in our particular context with our particular community of students?
Yes.
So as I think about how teams can use graduate profiles, so creating it is one useful exercise, but we also want people to think about how they can use it in an ongoing way, where one tool it can be is a kind of check over the decisions that we're making in our redesign. So we're in the midst of trying to figure things out about scheduling or figuring things out about curriculum or other big choices, having it be something we can stop and say, okay, we've been talking about these sort of logistical issues with scheduling, but like what impact is this going to have towards us reaching the goals of our graduate profile? How do we, it's kind of a constant touchstone to come back to. Are there other ways that you've seen teams use the graduate profile in sort of an ongoing way after developing it?
I think touchstone is a really good way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about a graduate profile is when you start with a problem of practice, maybe a problem of motivation of students, student engagement in particular courses. We often start to think about how do you interest students more, or how do we make this more relevant? And a graduate profile enables us to start responding to that with attributes. How do you develop curiosity?
Yep.
How do you do that? At the same time, thinking about the kinds of academic skills and knowledge that students are going to need for college.
Yep.
So, or for a post-secondary associate degree, or something else like that, and for being learners for life, so that we can weave the interest into the academics into the interests, and particularly being able to think about that together as we build things like interdisciplinary courses.
Because it's really easy when you're confronted with a problem, boredom, lack of motivation, to say, okay, sort of how do we target that direct problem? But part of what the graduate profile lets us do is say, well, we're not just solving boredom for the sake of solving boredom. We're solving it because we need motivated, interested kids to be able to develop all of these different capacities. And it kind of brings us back to making sure that we're trying to develop sort of fundamental solutions rather than kind of particular solutions to problems.
I think two other things that are, I've seen graduate profiles being useful for. One is stimulates the question, who else do we need to be bringing into this to help our students gain these capacities, right? So if our students are living in a fairly isolated neighborhood where they don't get a chance to see people like yourself, they don't know what goes on in MIT, right? Bringing in MIT or bringing in another college or a business or a nonprofit that's doing work with the river or some other ecological project, for example, allows the students to expand their interests, potentially expand their identity of who they think they might be. But the graduate profile gets us as educators to think about that in a way that's not just an enrichment, but essential. And the second would be almost like a vertical integration. What are they facing in the future? What is college demanding right now? And it gives us an opportunity to assess what we're doing and see, are we really making the kinds of demands on students or expectations for students that are going to prepare them well?
Right, so if the kind of work we're doing in schools isn't at a level that's going to let them achieve, what we set out in the graduate profile, that's a good check for us. That, how are we going to sort of ratchet up the rigor, the challenge, the involvement that students have.
And I've also seen in the highest performing schools academically, people use a graduate profile to say, our students are practically in an academic sweatshop in that they're working really, really hard. But they're not developing the capacity to collaborate, to work as a member of a team, to be curious about what else is going on beyond their own lives, and reaching out to find ways in which those attributes and capacities are built. It happens through really looking at the holistic graduate profile.
Good. So hopefully this will be a resource that's helpful for all of you during the rest of the 6 weeks of this course as we're sort of investigating how we can lead change and innovation and use the graduate profile as a tool for doing that.